This is another part to my walking stick video. What I came up with from the last time. I got that whitetail antler. I went ahead and cut a tine off and put a brass tip in it. I had already put a compass rose in the end with a Dremel tool, a couple brass pins, a piece of 1/4 inch rod goes up through here and it's also pinned in. And then this is just a brass piece I drilled out and took a Dremel belt little drum sander and smoothed it off, and then a lot of sandpaper work. The piece of rod comes out, I took on a grinder, just give it some notches, and what that does is just let the epoxy go someplace to set up. And I'm going to be putting this in this cherry handle that I cut out back. What I'm going to do is mix up a little 2-ton epoxy. Very easy, simple. You mix it up. They both come out even, so it's kind of hard to screw it up. You can always add a little bit more if need be. Stick it up there. I just got a little piece of wire bent that I stir with. And a lot of this goes a long way in a hole that you're inserting a rod into. So once you get it stirred up pretty good, you'll see it's blended in together. And this stuff is at any hardware store around anywhere. And I've got some masking tape wrapped around there with a match mark on it, but the masking tape, when the epoxy gets smeared around the top here and it starts flowing out over top, it's a lot easier to clean up when you got something to peel off there. And a razor blade will take it off pretty good too. What I'm just doing, I'm just filling up this hole with epoxy. All the hard work's done on the horn, pretty much. All the sanding, I've probably got, oh, I don't know, 8-10 hours, maybe. And doing just the handle. Smear a little epoxy on the rod. Make sure everyone's got some epoxy mating up. Stick it down in there and it wants to start oozing up out. And then once this is down in here and I have this set, but still needs a little more. It's not quite oozing out like I'd like it to see it. Just add a little bit more. Dump it down in there. You'll see the air bubbles pop out when you're sticking a rod down in it here. Suction. Epoxy way down in there. This hole might be a little extra deep. I just took a 1/4 inch drill bit and drilled down in that cherry stick. Not quite full yet. You can tell when it's full. You'll see the epoxy start gushing back up out. When it gets filled up. Oh, there we go. Now I can see it oozing up out now. It's just might add a little bit more just to fill any gaps that might be at the top. Let that drill. I got a little hook bent on this wire, and the only reason that is just to kind of dab it down in and Makes it a little bit easier stirring up the epoxy. And then I just take a rag and wipe this little rod off, and I reuse it. I've had this rod probably for a few years, just reusing over and over again. Oh, here we go. So you see that pop? That's epoxy bubbling up out of there. You want to try to be as full as you can, I think. I've never had a stick come apart yet. This epoxy, once it's set up, is like, you might be able to hear that popping and going. That's air bubbles popping out of there. There it goes. There's one bubbling up. That's what you want to see. That's what I like to see. That means that I am filled up with epoxy, and the overflow, oh, that's what I like to hear. Once you get it set in there, it almost makes like a suction, and then when that epoxy sets up, this thing is not going anywhere. There it is. You see a little bead, worked a little bead up over there. Let's see if we can see that a little better. A little bead of epoxy. It's kind of rolled out around there. And that is what I like to see. That means that thing is suctioned in. And any excess, I don't want to get that down on the stick, so I wipe that off. Let's set this back up here a minute. There we go. Now let me take care of a little clean up. Like I said, if that tape wasn't on there, I don't want to get that epoxy down on this nice cherry wood. Not that it wouldn't come off, but I don't want to take any of this nice red bark off. I would like to leave that on there. Just makes for a really nice finish then, if you take a little tape and wrap it. There we go. And I'll leave a little bead. I like to leave that bead, and you can see it, I'll show you here. This little bead of epoxy that I have on there. I like to leave that on there, and that is just because whenever it's all said and done, I start cleaning up and take a file and clean this all up, it all blends in and everything is nicely matched up, and it looks a little professional, if you will. So there's what this is our next segment. The next segment, what I'll be doing is taking some brass pins, and I'm going to pin that rod that came down in here. I'm going to pin that rod down in this piece of cherry then. Like I said, the upper half's already been pinned. The brass piece on here, as you can see, has been pinned. And I'll take it up from there on our next one. Now I'm going to add into this here, I'm working on a pair of moose horn grips. And these are for a little, oh, actually, let me see, might be in my pocket. There it is. Oh, what do you know? I'm making a pair of moose horn grips for my little North American Arms 22 Magnum. I already got them cut out. I had a pattern made up for it with the grips. And this is actually a failure. The horn was all punky. My holes were a little askew. It just wasn't working out. I love the piece of horn. The piece